Hey guys, welcome to Careers Uncorked. This is your co-host Sid.
And this is your co-host Sharfuz.
At Careers Uncorked, we host some amazing guests and hear their incredible stories.
And we're super excited to have you join us today.
Hey guys, welcome to Careers Uncorked. This is your co-host Sid.
And this is your co-host Sharfuz. And Sid, what a day! It's happy. It's Wednesday, right? It's happy Wednesday, dude.
Happy Wednesday. We did start a few minutes late. Sorry about that for people tuning in.
Yeah,
but we're just waiting on Adi to get downstairs. So we're gonna have a really exciting session today, which I'm really excited about.
Yeah, I'm really excited. I was reading a book, Sid. So I'm sorry for being busy. But Sid,
Which book were you reading?
Before I tell you that, Sid, you're a technology consultant, right? So I was gonna ask you, dude. Did you ever? So, dude, tell me, why did Facebook buy Instagram? Like, what are your thoughts there?
That's a very good question. I wish I read the book.
Okay, how does free mobile data hurt customers at the end of the day? Did you ever think about that?
No, I haven't.
Yeah. Okay, dude. Next Christmas, I'm getting you this book. All right. I think it's long overdue, and I think with the help of our guest today, I'll be able to convince you why you should get this book the next chance you get.
I like that. Is it the autograph copy?
This is an autographed copy. Yeah. Adi, they all wrote a great book, but I can't say much for Adi's handwriting though. But why don't we bring them to the stage? Because I think everyone's excited to meet them.
Sounds good. Hey, Adi, your part. Ooh,
hey,
you guys aren't meeting.
Hey guys.
Thanks for having us. How's it going?
It's good. It's good. Yeah.
We're really excited to have you guys here. So sorry for keeping you guys backstage while Sharfuz went over that and while I completely messed up all the responses, but I'll make sure to check out the book, guys.
No, you're good.
Yeah, we should. But yeah, we're super excited to have you guys here today. And I think to kick things off, I think Adi and Parth, everybody knows you guys as this amazing, successful authors and also as product managers at two of the biggest companies out there. But I think our first question was that who is Adi and Parth as a person? Tell us about that.
How about we do this? I'll introduce you, you introduce me.
I like that. That's a good idea.
I'll go with Parth. So Parth, if you just look at the stats, he's product manager at Facebook. He's worked at Amazon, IBM, Microsoft, a lot of these big companies. But his core personality, he's really funny. He's really into stand-up comedy. He always has whenever you're trying to be serious and make a decision, he'll always just break tension with some funny joke. So he's just very lighthearted, down to earth, and overall really smart guy. And it's been awesome just working with him last 3 or so years on writing the books and getting all this stuff out. So yeah.
Yes. Adi, thanks for the intro. Adi is a PM at Microsoft. Before that, he was running his own company. Adi's super entrepreneurial, but also very trolly. He loves being lighthearted and having fun. I think that's why we get along well as co-authors, because we can be serious and get work done, but we also have a good time and just goofing around.
Yeah.
Yeah.
That was
I really love the switch of the intros. That was a really cool aspect. But yeah. So let's jump into this. So why product management for you guys?
We lost a bet. No, but I think for me, I was working in marketing, and so I kind of stumbled upon product management by accident. There was supposed to be an intern that was an MBA candidate who was supposed to get a PM internship, but for visa reasons she couldn't actually join Microsoft, and so they were shorthanded. And instead of giving me the marketing internship I was supposed to do, they gave me this MBA level PM internship of go and figure out what should be Xbox's strategy for mobile. This was back in 2016, and it's mobile is on pace this year to overtake both console and PC in terms of revenue in gaming, but we don't have game engineers to make mobile games. Make a meaningful presence for Xbox on mobile without actually building games. So that's a very meaty internship project. But I loved it. I hit up all these different game developer studios. A few of the CEOs actually responded. I got meetings with some Alex Seropian, who created Bungie Studios, which was the studio behind the original Halo game, for instance. He now runs like his own mobile game dev studio, and like few other people like that. And so essentially, what I proposed was bringing the Xbox Live social network to mobile third-party games, to integrate that social stack, because like we have that community that like nobody uses Game Center on iOS or Google Play games. That community is like so valuable. So bringing it to mobile was like a really compelling value prop for these mobile game dev studios. Microsoft, since that internship, actually acquired a company called PlayFab to like start integrating these things into the Azure xCloud like gaming stack. And so like that internship like helped me realize that like the thing that got me really excited was like getting these big ambiguous problems and trying to figure out like how do we create compelling product experiences that solve real like user pain points, and that are just like fun and enjoyable. And that's kind of what got me interested in product management.
That's awesome. Like for me, it's so I think Microsoft was my first introduction to PM2. Before that, I was running my own company, and throughout that, I was having like multiple different hats. I was like just managing a team, trying to like do biz dev, get the business off the ground, and like raise. And so while all those things were happening, I realized that the most transferable skills I had were in the form of being a product manager. And so when I joined Microsoft, I was very lucky to be placed on a Azure growth team. And what our team does is basically everyone talks about the cloud. Everyone's moving their workloads there, but there's some people, whether you're a small mom and pop shop, whether you're a business and you want to keep some of your data locally for like speed, networking issues, you just want it there for security and regulatory reasons, whatever the use case is, they need to keep it locally. And so our team builds features that basically connect this on-premise data and servers to the cloud. And it's like this unification of these two that's known as hybrid cloud. It's the fastest growing segment inside of the cloud ecosystem, where you can connect both cloud with on-prem. And so we get a lot of autonomy. We can build features on either side and ship them. Like Azure ships on a much faster cadence than shipping on premises. So you can like do strategic things where you like take a lot of time to like make the platform right, and then in Azure, like every week, every month, you can just like continuously update new experiences and light them up. You can do marketing stunts. Back a year and a half ago, we did a huge branding and marketing play. And that week, when we had that unification and that push on the marketing side, our stock visibly rose from 107 to 113 that week. And so you can have this tangible impact on the financials and the business growth when you're on like this sort of team. And so I've loved it. It gives me a lot of autonomy to do all of this and really learn it and sink my teeth into it. And so that's why I think PM has been the right fit for me.
Wow, it's so exciting to hear from both you guys' story. I mean, for Arth, I remember Microsoft Social. I actually bought my sister a Windows phone just for that Xbox connectivity. I think there was a way to connect your phone on an Xbox if you were using one of their Windows phones. So I bought her one of those. They did go out of style pretty soon, but it's still, I remember.
Hey, we have a new one coming out. TikTok. TikTok edition.
That's a really crazy experiences, man. Yeah, that's and I love the way you just described it. There's like so much into it, but it's just like the amount of impact you guys were having in your role. That seems like there's like so much impact there. So that seems really cool, guys. And I think this is a good segue into one thing that I think we and everyone else also very curious about is that so far, what do you enjoy the most about being a product manager? What do you love the most?
Yeah, I think the thing that I really love about being a product manager is just being able to like, you see things that no one else sees. You are talking with customers, you're talking with, you're looking at competitors, you're talking to your actual partners, and you're synthesizing all of this different information that's sitting in the heads of multiple different people, whether they're internal and they're your finance team, sales team, marketing, your like customer partner relations teams, or if it's external and like people who are actually using your product. And you're able to synthesize this to actually create a vision and a strong narrative for your product, your feature, and set that roadmap. And that's something very unique, like setting the vision, being able to like kind of predict the future and make a product that like addresses like how the markets are changing, how your user behaviors are changing. It's something that's really fun because it's back when I was little, like I used to be really into magic, and I used to just love like doing tricks and impressing people, and like doing this whole like story behind like how I can like predict like what someone's card is, for example. And it's kind of like that. Like you see all of these things that other people don't see, and you're able to like create this vision, and you're able to build these magical experiences for your users. And you're able to be the pioneer in seeing that first and bringing that to reality. And I think that whole process is just really exciting.
Yeah, for sure.
Okay, I'm just gonna go grab the charger real quick.
The low battery stand. For me, like I think it's just like creating those moments where like a user is just like, oh my god, that was like so intuitive, or like I just love that experience. So like, so I work on music at Facebook, and so like that includes like adding music to your story on Instagram or Facebook. And one of the things that we saw there was like people struggled to find like the right song for the right moment, and when they had the right song, it's kind of a pain to like listen to like a 4-minute song to find the 10 seconds of audio that you're like interested in. And so we created like a machine learning model to essentially figure out what is like the best part of the song, as well as to recommend users like songs that would be relevant to them and their story. And so like now what we have is like for any given song, we have like 3 or 4 like different highlight points of like, here are what we think are like the best parts of the song. The chorus, like this verse featuring a different artist, this really popular verse and this really popular verse. And so like what this does is it really reduces the user friction. And it's like those seamless experiences where people previously had to like scroll and they're like, oh, this is so delightful. This just got better. Like I remember, this is like super random, but like there's like this brand of oatmeal I saw that had like this blueberry muffin flavor that just sounded delicious. And it wasn't like Quaker or whatever. I forget the brand name, but like the packaging was super intuitive. Like it was like, tear it here, fill like the slip that the oatmeal came into, like now use it to like fill milk. And like it was just like so intuitive. Like they really thought through, like almost as if they had like a tech PM, like the entire experience. They minimized how many different utensils you need to use. And it was just like, wow, this was super pleasant. Like even their box was like shaped in a different way such that it was like curved out so you can easily swap and it like stands up. Like I don't know, like it was just like creating those experiences that are super seamless for things that you use every day that people previously thought were good enough. Like I think that's like what gets me really excited of like anything could be made better. And it's just like up to the PM to find like how do we make it better.
That's very cool.
Yeah, that's really amazing. I think like I guess like in a way you guys get to feel really close to the users and really close to the customers, and like and I guess like because Parth, you mentioned like you just improved that experience and you made it way more seamless for the users. And I guess I have to ask, so, and this also goes to Adi as well, like being in such a big company, do you guys always directly get to interact with the users, or is this some sort of data that comes to you that this is the problem, or are you guys investigating the user pain points on your hunch?
So I could speak to Facebook. Facebook's extremely data driven. So for us, like what we noticed, like when we decided to make like machine learning models to find the highlight points, like we noticed that we were looking at our funnel of like where people dropped off. And we noticed the big drop-off points where people struggled to either find a song, and surprisingly, almost as many people struggled to find the right part of the song because they were dropping out after they selected the song because they didn't want to deal with finding the right moment. And so like, it's like a lot of times like the data can tell the story pretty well. Other times you'll see something of like this metric's going up, but this metric's going down, and like you'll have hypotheses. But it's hard to validate just based on data alone. So for that, you might do like user testing sessions or research. Like oftentimes when we're creating like products for like target markets, like say India, like we want to create like a payments experience in WhatsApp or something like that, for instance. Like for that, we should go in market and like talk to users there to like feel like what are the real pain points. Because like especially if you like grew up in the US, for instance, you might not know like what makes that experience, like what are the real pain points. Like it's hard to empathize without like in person hearing those stories from users themselves. So I'd say it's a combination of talking to users, empathizing as a user, as well as looking at data.
It's a very similar thing for us. Like we get aggregate telemetry on all of our users, but you have to have your like 6 or so like reference customers that you go to. So like for B2B products, right? Like you're trying to target everything from a small scale organization to a medium business to a large scale enterprise. And so as you're like moving up and up that funnel, you need to have a couple reference points at each stage, because the problems and the type of ways they're interacting with your stuff is very different. Like for example, in the use case I was telling you about with like hybrid cloud, if I'm a mom and pop shop, I just have one ice cream shop, I'm like doing what I love, making desserts. I only am using that on-premise system for like local storage of files, of like maybe a print server, maybe badging on my building. But like as I start moving a little bit up in that funnel and I get to like the medium-sized business, I have multiple locations, I'm starting to franchise my business, and I start having security cameras at a central warehouse that's doing like manufacturing and mass production of this ice cream or whatever these desserts are. I'm going to start to like integrate this data and try to use Azure Cognitive Services. And so that requires me to pull down some of these machine learning models from the cloud for like security, for advanced badging, for like checking up on your supply chain and the IoT sensors that are integrated in there. And so you have to make sure that, one, as a customer in a defined range, how are they doing, and you're building the right stuff. And then two, as a customer moves up in this funnel, or even sometimes down in this funnel, if they're downsizing or like restructuring their business, how do you make sure that the business can grow and shrink in this regard with their IT footprint when you're doing that? And so it's a lot of these like every week with these like reference customers, like we will have calls where like talk about like every week, every 2 weeks, like how they're doing, like how they're using these things. We'll like go and fly out to them and see how they're interacting with the software. Then at a more aggregate scale, we'll collect larger scale like feedback and data, look at telemetry, go to large conferences, get feedback from a lot of people at once. And based on all of that, we'll make shift decisions.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think also like on Adi's note, like I guess being working with Microsoft Cloud, I think that might be pretty exciting, because that's like next to Amazon, right? And then next to AWS, maybe, if I'm not wrong. I think like GCP is that.
Yeah, it's second right now, but growth rate is really good. So to overtake soon. That's like touch wood. Like
Adi's behind that, so yeah.
I mean, my team, we're all like playing our part.
Yeah.
That's awesome. Yeah, I think so. The other thing is, I think we hear so much about like how awesome product manager and like a lot of the exciting things, and it's a lot of common knowledge now, right? But from your personal experiences, what are some of the things that excite you the least, maybe in your day-to-day roles, or like maybe the least favorite parts, or any frustrating parts, if there is any, from you guys, from your perspective?
Yeah, I think you have to be, so like we were saying, you have to be able to set this vision, bring people together. But when doing that, you have to do some things that are like a little bit more political. So like one thing, for example, like, I'll tell you a story. It's not particularly like political, but it's like an example of like how like it's not something that you learn in school. It's a little different about, and it requires like the social skills. So there was a time I was on a team, and we were trying to build this really optimized feature. The team had built this really optimized feature that like improved these metrics that we were looking at, like multiple like levels of magnitude, like 5x success. It would be an amazing customer experience, and we were trying to take that and ship it publicly. And while like doing this integration process, that team was really hesitant. They kept asking us, "Hey, like we're not like we don't want to do this. Like we built this stuff, but like it's gonna go out in like a year or two." And when we actually dug behind the story, this tech was actually built 5 years ago, and the narrative that this team had been spinning was trying to keep it like internal use only and not bringing it externally for these last 5 years. And so there were multiple PMs in the past that had tried to do this, but it just had failed. And I dug deeper into it, and I started realizing that there was immense political pressure given the way the rewards and the way they were evaluated was set up. Like for internal things, like the quality bar and like the repercussions for something going wrong were very minimal. But the second it goes publicly, like it was really bad in terms of the way, in terms of the hours of like dev time that would be put on their quality team to like fix it. And so there were these like minute structural things that like at first like that just made them hesitant, even if it was working really well internally and we didn't have data to justify that we shouldn't ship it. And so understanding the political tensions that existed between teams, I was new, so I just took full advantage of that. I started asking questions. I started just like meeting people, and one day I luckily just stumbled upon. I was at the office on a weekend. I forgot my laptop charger, so I was just picking it up, and I realized that their team was there on Saturday. So I just like went over and I started talking to the PM, to the devs, and I saw that they were like really just underwater with something that they had released. And so I just sat down, I saw how I could help. I like ordered donuts for the team, and we just started like getting along and just like vibing a little bit. And like since then, like I started like just like corp carding like food for them that I would bring in like once a week. And it just like honestly like, something as like small as that really helped because like we just became friends and we just started like in between meetings and stuff, we would like go on a walk, we would just like talk about things, and I think like that really helped ease some of these tensions that existed. And so a couple months later, like when it was like the planning process, I was able to get the features on the roadmap. I was able to smooth these tensions, understand like where they were coming from, and alleviate some of their concerns. And we were eventually able to ship that. And so like I think the main like lesson here is that like while on the surface level, like PM sounds awesome, like all these things about vision, a lot of time what it comes down to is just like how well you understand people and how well you can like read groups. And if you like sense some tension, you have to get in there and just be fun, like vibe with them, understand them, empathize, and come out so that you can move forward and get the ball rolling. That's like your fundamental job.
Yeah, no, I think that was a really cool story to share, and I don't think those are things you could like read online. I think those are like some like heavy personal experiences you could only hear from someone who has experiences like yours. Like so, like advice to like first day of your job as a PM, you ask everyone what's your favorite food or what's your favorite drink, what's your favorite restaurant, and just be ready to take them out whenever there is something going on. But yeah, jokes aside, I think like the people skill is like I guess one of the most important things, and I guess like just showing it during the interview process as well. But yeah, Sid, this sort of takes us to our very important segment, right?
Yeah. Also known as the title of the session, breaking into product management. So, Parth, I'm going to start off with you. What are your thoughts on the type of people, like the backgrounds of candidates that top companies are looking for in product managers?
Yeah, so I think like people come into product management from all sorts of different walks of life. I've seen people who've like myself have come from like a more like a marketing background, people who've come from entrepreneurial backgrounds. I've even had like one of my managers in the past was a lawyer before he switched to product. And I'm finding that's actually a relatively like common path as well, especially for some of these like products like YouTube, for instance, where there's so much like copyright law implications, for instance. And so like I don't think there's any like traditional path. I would say like the most common is probably software engineer turned product manager, or like the university product manager of somebody who joins through like an APM program out of college. But like I think like it's not so much that like there's like an educational like background per se that's like more valuable than others. Like I find that a lot of the APM programs do tend to prefer people who have like a more technical background. But I think that's just because like in a lot of these more entry level roles, you're doing a lot more like project management, and then being able to get down and dirty with like the more technical details can be really helpful. But like I think as you get more and more senior, the less technical background matters. I think like the skills that people look for in a PM is just like, is this someone who can bring a team together and who can understand the user's pain points, their needs, and create compelling product experiences. Like I think the two most important things that a PM needs to do is bring people together and like ruthlessly prioritize and be like the person who makes that call at the end of the day, because there's so many amazing things you could do to make the experience better and better, but like at a certain point you need to ship, you need to test, and you need to get data to validate your hypotheses. And so I think the role of the PM is to just make those calls while bringing everyone together and make sure everyone feels like their voice is being heard.
Gotcha. I think that's a really, really great response. Go ahead, Aditya, are you trying to add something?
Oh, no. You can finish your thought. Yeah.
Oh, I was just going to say, because a lot of people are sort of pushing for that tech background, because that really helps in understanding the rest of the team and like working alongside with them. So I think that's a really good insight for people tuning in.
Yeah. Yeah, Adi, you were saying something, but I was gonna say that like because I think there's a lot more pressure who are not engineers, and they feel like an added disadvantage. I don't know if you have any opinion on that as well.
Yeah, I was just going to build upon the point that Parth was saying. Like, it's really interesting to me. Like, there's a lot of applicable skills in a lot of other professions. So, like, I have a friend, and she's an architect, and she was able to break into product management after working as an architect for 5 to 6 years. And it's something that, like, I mean, law, consulting, finance, like software, like these things, same relative area. You can kind of see people making that transition.
Yeah.
But that when I was talking to her about her background, like. What she explained to me was when she was working in architecture, there's a lot of planning involved. Like if you're building a large project, like you need to go through multiple phases of like, division designs, and you go through and you make actual construction designs, then you make the actual development designs, and they have this like actual like A, B, C, D, like it's actually like starts with A, then B, then C, like actual 4-step like process for how to get those designs done, and then you like actually go on site as they're constructing it, and you make sure they're actually building it to code. And so this process is very similar to product management. Like it's like you figure out like based on all these the vision that you have, based on all these other inputs, like what the plan is. You like iterate on the plan, and then as it's like actually being built, you make sure that like it's actually going to plan. If anything comes up and goes awry, like you make sure to fix those things, and you bring in the right people, and eventually when you're going to present it and it's going to get used, like you make sure that you track that growth, and you make sure that you can use that to like build upon the next project. And so it's very similar. And if you abstract a lot of these concepts away, like it's there's a lot of similarities that you can draw upon in other professions like that. And so what it really comes down to, like Parth is saying, is being able to like bring people together for that vision, and then two, like understand these different skills. Like if you're talking to your engineers, you don't need to know how to code, but you need to know how to understand how technology works and like the business behind it. If you're talking to marketing, you need to understand like, you don't need to understand exactly like how they're running their ad campaigns and what they're optimizing for and what keywords do, but you need to know at a general level how SEO works and like what sort of stuff you should do for that, and what platforms will be the best for you with your ad strategy, and work with them on that. And so it requires you to like just understand 80% of like these different domains so that you can execute and bring people together towards that shared goal.
Yeah,
that's really helpful.
No, absolutely, Parth. Thanks for. I think the aspect of like just bringing people together. I think that's one of my. I'll say it's like one of the biggest things. I think that's a really powerful quality. And if you feel like someone feels like that they have that and their experiences shows that, they should not feel disadvantaged. Just like show during the interview that you're somebody who can do that, I guess. So I think that's very powerful. But yeah.
I think that's also like Facebook's mission or vision statement: bring people together.
Yeah, I think Microsoft is also trying to do that, low-key, very soon.
We'll get into that in a second.
We'll get into that later.
But Adi, so I have a question for you. What do you think is some of the biggest mistakes that applicants are making when they're applying for these PM roles?
That's a really good question. So I think like so we get a lot of these questions, right? Like when we're talking to people looking to break into this space, a lot of our the people who like reach out have read Swipe to Unlock, and Swipe to Unlock is a book on technology and business strategy, and it really dissects what we were saying earlier, like how to speak with your team and understand the moving parts of the tech and the strategic side behind it. And the biggest question we get is like that, like what are some of the how do I move past that point? Like what are some of the like biggest mistakes you see, and how do I like adapt to it? And so like when thinking through this, like we just spent a lot of time because when we're writing these books, we talk to a lot of head of products, we talk to senior execs in product management, and we ask them like similar questions. Like if you had to give yourself advice like 10 years ago, because now you're running these big teams at like Grab, TikTok, companies, like what would you do differently or to like accelerate your growth? And surprisingly, we thought that at first we thought that all these things would like fall in like random buckets, but surprisingly they fell into the same like 7 buckets of skills that like you should know, and they're like areas of weaknesses that a lot of people have. So these 7 skills were like, at first you need to understand how to take these ideas from 0 to 1 and then 1 to n. Like what does like product design actually look like, and how do you like not just innovate on product, but how do you innovate on like strategy behind it too? Then like how do you look at like the psychology behind things? Like how are people actually interacting with your products? Like what compels them to use it? Is the economics check out? Like is the business model sound? How do you measure your growth and use data science to like track that over time? What's like the best user experience, like piecing this all together so that people actually feel compelled to use your product? When you're growing, there's like law and policy and regulatory environments that like you need to be aware of. So how do you like tackle that? And how do you growth market it? Once you have product market fit, once you've like overcome these hurdles, how do you just scale it? And so these 7 skills became known as like these like 7. They were just like these 7 like core skills that we thought would be relevant. And eventually, we just got so much interest that we decided to actually write a book on this. And this book is actually something that we've been working on in the last year or so, because as we started researching this more and more, we saw that many people were good at 1 or 2 of these things. Like they come in from an econ background, they're good at like metrics and economics. If they come in from a CS or design background, let's say, they're good at like product design and user experience. But if you, in order to be like a true product manager and excel and start leading these teams, you have to be good at all 7 in order to cohesively like start getting more and more autonomy and bringing these larger scale products together. So this book called Product Management Sacred 7 will be diving into like these 7 core skills that you need to know to become that world-class PM, and something that we'll be releasing in the next week or so. So excited after all this, we can definitely share it out with your community too. But excited for that.
We're excited, and Sharfuz is looking forward to a signed copy of that as well.
Yeah, just mine.
Yeah. For him, man.
Yeah, I'll send you guys like my new address. It's not the same one.
Give me a week, don't worry.
All right. That sounds good. So no, and Adi, thanks for sharing all that. I think that was very, very valuable, and definitely like a lot to take in from that. I think so. My next question is for you. So suppose you are getting that interview. You have that interview landed. You have that resume. You landed that interview. What would you say is a general approach for people to prepare for that phone round? That's very dreaded. That's a lot about those product design strategy or metrics question. That's sort of common across the different big companies. Like, what would you say are like few of the best practice for preparation towards that?
Yeah, so I think like my approach has always been like I like to start out by going on like Glassdoor and seeing what sort of questions that this company is known to ask. That gives you like a good feel. Glassdoor is getting pretty stale. Adi's actually been working on this project called Product Alliance. I don't know if you mentioned it already.
Not yet.
Yeah, so like essentially what we found is like there's like one of the biggest challenges, like at least, so I haven't recruited since I graduated from school, but when I was recruiting in college, like I was applying to like Amazon and Google and Facebook and Microsoft and like all of these other companies. And like what I found is like the people who get offers, like there's so many competent people, but these companies are looking for people who are genuinely passionate about their company, who knows the ins and outs of their company, that know like we just made this minor acquisition that like the press didn't even pick up on, but it's going to be pivotal to like the future of Azure. And like most people are going to miss that. And like those small things are super important. And finding those things, like for each company, it takes like hours. Like literally, I think it takes me like 5 to 10 hours to feel well versed in a company and everything they're doing, from their financials to their culture to like what acquisitions they've made, like watching their latest like F8 or like Apple keynote, like just understand what their product roadmap looks like. Like all of these things take so much time. And so like what Adi's been working on is like a course that essentially one of the things that course offers is like study guides for like the top 20 something companies, like 22 companies, of like, here is like the 5-page summary of like pretty much everything that I needed to know from my 5 to 10 hours of like researching like the company, as well as like exactly what their interview process looks like, what sort of questions they ask. He's essentially done that for all of the top companies. So like, you don't have to like do that yourself. Assuming you do it yourself, I would recommend Glassdoor, looking at the sort of questions and then just like watching all those talks, like just spending the time. I think like if you're just like looking for like one company, like if you have a dream company, I would definitely go for depth instead of like doing the shotgun approach. Yeah. But I think it is good to do the shotgun approach just so you have more options and like leverage when you're negotiating your offers.
Yeah, and like building upon that, right? Like when you're looking to interview, the thing that we noticed a lot so when I was building this collective of product managers, right, through Product Alliance, I had product managers from like Google, Facebook, Microsoft, Amazon, Lyft, Uber, etc. And what I noticed in like when I was like vetting them to be part of the course was I grilled them. I gave them like some of the most like hard, most difficult questions. Like I told one person like I just invented teleportation. Like your startup just invented it. You have the access to that technology. Like figure out like a business model for that that'll achieve like the max profitability. Like,
that's such a jerk move, dude.
huh?
That's such a jerk move. That's so rude.
Like in like a in like it was like a fun thing. We would just like bounce off ideas. Like it would be like fun, but like secretly like I'm taking notes to see if like how they answer that. And like the answers, whenever you're given curveball questions like that, the answers that like stood out, and like we all interview at our companies, like the answers that like really stand out are the ones that like don't follow like a set framework, and they don't do that, but they still understand the reason behind asking the question. They address that head on, and then they go in. So for a question like this, like most candidates, 95% of candidates would just say, oh, like, let me think about that. They would like think, and then they're like, okay, like if we like, I'll ask them like, the questions, clarifying questions. Okay, after asking those clarifying questions, they'll be like, okay, like I think in terms of business model, I would like, sell this to like rich people because like they like to travel, and like Virgin Airlines was like doing something similar with like that whole like concept where you send people in space for like $100,000. Like I think like that's going to be what I do, and they'll like talk about like the whole model there. But what like an answer that stood out, like when we asked a product manager from Google this question, was he took a step back and he said, like I understand why you're asking this question. Like technology is like an industry where like you just get like because of bleeding edge innovation, like you just get these like innovative like solutions that just disrupt fundamentally like the status quo. And I know you're asking about teleportation, but that could be, that was machine learning like 20 years ago. That was blockchain like 10 years ago. That was all these concepts that fundamentally radically change how we think about a space. And it's like 10x improvement from what was there before. And so I get it. I really like this question. Like I'm excited to like dive in and think about like the business model. And then he asked like those questions. Like that 3 or 4 sentences of framing just like stands out because you're able to like, they get it. And they're able to like, then just like the way the conversation flows and everything, like you're like hooked as the interviewer. And so it's like those things that like you can do that we like outline in that course. Like there's like what Parth was mentioning, like we have one course that goes deep on these 20 companies, but like the meaty course is the second course called Hacking the Product Management Interview. And we have over 85 questions like this where we maintain a 10 out of 10 quality bar. Like we don't, there's a lot of other, products out there that are made by people who just got an offer after MBA or college, and they just decided to brain dump all of their knowledge. And if I'm being honest, they have good behavioral answers to questions. The storytelling there about their personal stories and breaking in, they do a good job on that. But their answers to the product questions are subpar. They don't meet the hiring bar. If you look at other competitors that start doing like Exponent that do product management, design, software engineering, data science, they reuse content from different courses. And when they do that, the quality bar of those responses is also average. It doesn't, in many cases, if you're looking for some of these more competitive programs like Facebook RPM, Google APM, Microsoft, if you're looking to go and you're already been working for a little bit and going for that next position, it won't meet the hiring bar for them. And so what we really wanted to do was make these professionally curated like shop interviews where we annotate these things with notes, show you what to put on the whiteboard. I interject in the middle and I say, hey, look, like right now, Anna is about to say something really powerful. When she answers this question, pay attention to the next minute and see how she ties this like key insight into her story. And then it goes back to her answering the question. And now you're able to like follow that narrative and see exactly how she does that. And so I think by doing that, you're able to improve from being like an average candidate that using the resources that everyone is using to actually standing out and getting these people to like really vouch for you after the hiring committee to bring you on your team. Because that's really what you want to do at these companies. Like the hiring bar that we have at at Facebook, at Microsoft, like our recruiters tell us, like if you would be willing to fly across the country to pitch someone to join your team, like that's the level of conviction you need when sending out an offer letter. And so like that's the level of conviction we bring in our course.
Wow.
Yeah, that's I'm okay. First of all, I heard about Product Alliance. I'm like super excited about that. So I think that was really, really great. I think one thing I could just want to say at that point is that I I think because I went through my whole journey of practicing for those interview rounds, and I spent my college senior year, I've probably spent like 100 plus hours practicing. And I think all the existing resources like cracking the PN interview, decode and conquer, and even as many mock interviews you can do. I think I've been through all that. And needless to say, it didn't work out. But I think I do realize when you say that the extra stuff that you mentioned, the research, I think that's what makes the difference between someone like me who may have spent 100 hours practicing, but someone who actually like knows that extra thing, that extra flair, and connects it together. Yeah, I definitely connect. I see what you mean there. Yeah, I have some regrets, but you should have launched it before, man.
No, don't worry. Like we're doing fine now. Like
applications are still open, Sharfuz.
Man, I think that's some really great, really good advice. Yeah, absolutely, Adi. Sid, is it time to jump on? I know we are definitely running on time, but do you want to jump into our next favorite round?
Yeah, let's do it. And also before we do that, people in watching us live, feel free to drop a comment with your questions. We'll be taking questions towards the end of the session. So last 5 minutes is dedicated just for questions. So make sure to drop in the comments so we can pick them up from there. With that being said, we're going to jump into our most exciting segment. It's called the Rapid Fire. We're also trying to rebrand this into questions from William. William is one of our co-founders. He's Sharfuz and I respond to him. So we're going to jump into this. So we're going to split it, Adi in part. We're going to ask you different questions. So we'll start off with Adi. What's your dream travel destination?
Ooh, recently I really want to go to like South America and hit like Argentina, Chile, Peru, and just do like a lot of like outdoorsy stuff and just backpack there and camp and just explore like a lot of the beautiful nature there. So I think like if I had to pick like right now, like I think given everything that's happening, it'd be the perfect time to visit and just like
when you go.
Yeah.
Yeah, absolutely. All right, next one's for Parth. Parth, what superpower would you want, if any?
I think time travel would be super cool. Like just being able to go forwards and backwards, know the winning lottery number, come back.
Tell me.
Future?
Yeah. I think it's between time travel or teleportation. Like being able to just like seamlessly like see the world, like go places. Like I think like the thing that makes like weekend travel like something that's kind of interesting that you don't really think about is like going from Seattle to like Seoul is like 12 hours flight. That's not that bad. But like it's like you kind of want to try it as like a 3-day weekend, but you know like you won't get your money's worth. But like if you could just snap somewhere and spend a weekend, I think that would be so cool. So I'm torn between time travel and teleportation.
Nice.
I agree. Definitely respect that. All right.
Adi, if you weren't a product manager, what would you be doing?
Ooh, honestly, like at the time, I probably would have gone into consulting. Probably strategy consulting somewhere. Because it's like the most similar. You still get to set vision, and it's fun. You get to travel. Like you get to meet with a lot of different clients. Yeah, I think that's what I would probably be doing.
Yeah. I was gonna say he would have been an author, but that's taken. All right. Parth, next one's for you. What's the best piece of advice you have ever received?
That's a hard one. I think the advice for me, like it's not like super profound or like generally applicable, but like when I joined Facebook, like I felt like kind of like I needed to go and learn how to code. Because like I worked at a tech company, I'm like, okay, as I try to advance in my career, like this will become increasingly important. I talked to my manager and he was kind of like, like I don't know if you like need to know how to code. Like he was like, why do you think you need to know? And I'm like, okay, like I think it'd be like useful to like be more accurate in terms of like the timelines I create for roadmaps, like X, Y, and Z. And he's like, here's the thing, like I studied computer science. But like Facebook's stack is just like so nuanced. There's so much tech debt that like no matter how like up to speed you are, unless you like spend a day digging into things, which you as a PM will definitely not have time for, like you won't be able to do what you're trying to derive value from. And as you get more and more senior, like the soft skills as well as like the hard like data science skills or like design skills or business strategy skills are like what will set you apart in your career and help you like move forward. And so like I kind of took that advice to heart. Like I was otherwise gonna like I think I probably would have, like, if I tried to like actually hold down a full-time job and like teach myself how to code on the side, like I probably would have been average at both. By like not taking that on and having more time to focus on my actual job, like I think I was able to like learn the skills that like really required to be a successful PM, which I don't think it's so much like the technical side as it is like how to bring a team together, how to like create like a solid vision and balance both user needs as well as business goals.
Yeah, I think there's a good life lesson there for everyone over there. I think that's a good one. Yeah, Sid.
All right, Adi, for you, what's something you wish you knew back in college?
I think so back then, like I was very like so I hadn't so related to like the travel thing we're talking about, right? It's like a personal thing. I actually hadn't really been outside of the US other than like back home to India. And I would only hit like US and India. Those are the only two countries I've been to in college. And so I really wish like I knew about a lot of the stuff that I know now about like just travel hacks and how to find cheap flight deals. And it just seemed like a very inaccessible thing to me at the time as a student and just given everything else. And so I thought I wish like I knew about some of these things and I had gone abroad more often and visited more countries. I think I did this sort of thing where like after college, I just like started traveling an insane amount. And so like every month it would be like a new place. And so I think like now like I've gotten out of my system, but I think like if I had done it earlier, like it would have been fun. And there's a lot of like different nuances between like airline statuses and points and all these like flight deal aggregators and stuff like that to make it more accessible. And so I just wish I had like been privy to that earlier.
Yeah.
Because like all the interviews you do, right? Like if you just put them all on like one airline, like that's like a free trip right there.
That's true. Yeah, definitely. All right. My next one. So this actually is for both of you guys. Share one fun but preferably embarrassing memory of each other.
Oh no.
The first thing that comes to your mind. You know, those are things we people won't read in the book, so we need to get those out here.
I remember we were at Facebook one time with like me, Adi, and like a couple other friends, and like we have like a ball pit like at like the Seattle office, and we were all just like chilling in the ball pit, throwing like little balls at each other and making a big mess. I'm pretty sure that ball pit's meant for children, but yeah.
I think like thinking back to us, like Parth and I played a lot of dumb games like odds, and I think there was one time like we were at some office in the Bay Area, and I think there were just like a lot of different options to make like a dip, like for like your salad or whatever, like different types of dressing. So we played odds where like if you lost, like the other person got to come up with a concoction of their own, and then the other person had to drink it. And so like we just like we just kept playing that until like one of us lost, and then we just kept doing things like that where we would just like give them like sesame oil with like 1,000 Island sauce, like just dumb stuff like that.
Those were on the same day.
I think
now that I think about it.
Yeah, I think it was around the weekend.
That's crazy. All right, last question. Who's your favorite co-host, Sid or Sharfuz? Each one of you get to pick.
Who's our favorite one?
Who's your favorite co-host, Sid or Sharfuz?
No, both of you have been amazing. We can't pick.
Divide and conquer if you want.
We always ask you
a lot of questions.
Strategy question that you guys have ever been asked. This is the biggest strategy question you guys have ever been asked. You guys have to decide.
Yeah, it's tough, man. I don't know. Like, I need to do a SWOT analysis.
Yeah.
we on this. We ask our guests.
You in like a week.
In a week?
We gotta run the numbers, look at the data, you know.
Cost benefit, like which has the the longer lifetime value, you know.
They're gonna make a roadmap out of it. I mean, they're addressing it like product managers. I mean, we'll just call it as I said.
Yeah, this is a split.
Yeah, we'll take one vote each. It's all right. I mean, all right. So there's like the next part is more of the exciting stuff that I think that's something you guys are used to talking a lot in a lot of the sessions that you guys do, and we wanted to like have like show our like present to our audience a little segment of that, like some of the business strategy stuff and some of the things that people could learn a lot about from reading Swipe to Unlock, which I was personally able to do. But I wanted to get your opinion on what's one of the biggest things that's in conversation right now, what's happening within Microsoft and TikTok. What's your guys' take on this, and what's your analysis on this? Give us the Swipe to Unlock version of it.
So like the backstory here, right, with like TikTok and Microsoft, is that obviously with a lot of these security vulnerabilities and the privacy overreach, there's been a lot of global concern with TikTok, especially because a lot of young people, Gen Z, are using that. And a lot of countries like India have already banned it, and the US was proposing to ban it. Now, at this time, the founder of TikTok was wanting to sell the company, while his board, his C-suite, his VP team was thinking of spinning off a private entity and running it. But he didn't want to do that because he knew that he couldn't tie it back into like the existing like infrastructure that they have. They would have to be actually independent entities. And so selling it was a viable option. And so when this news broke out, what was happening in parallel in the States was that Google, Facebook, Amazon, and Apple, Tim Cook, Jeff Bezos, Sundar, and Zuckerberg were all in trial in congressional hearings for antitrust. And at the same time, Satya was able to pounce on this opportunity. And yeah, no, I see that in the chat, Microsoft 420 calls. Like, don't do that, but like Microsoft is definitely on a good trajectory. Like, I think, like Satya was just like, I don't know, right? So Satya was just like on this like next level strategy. Nobody thought he would like pull this out. But when the news broke out, he made the offer. And he made the offer for somewhere between 20 to 30 billion. That's what's speculated. And overnight, like Thursday night after hours, we announced it. Friday morning, when stock opened, we had shot up and our market cap increased $80 billion in value. And so that acquisition, we didn't even acquire them, but now we like gain like 3 to 4x their market cap, just like that overnight. And so it's brilliant. Like regardless of whether or not, like let's just take that information alone. Regardless of whether or not the strategic synergies, of like how will we fix it, will we make money? None of that matters because we've already more than paid for it. Now, like thinking back and looking at the strategic overview, it actually makes a lot of sense for Microsoft to do this. Satya, when he came and joined the company and became CEO in 2014, he set this like vision that for the next 5 years, what he was going to focus on was a couple things. One, like fixing the culture of Microsoft, making sure that we have this growth mindset and we look for new opportunities and we engage and we don't close off our platform. And specifically, he did this in very clear, bold ways. Like he made sure that Office products, which previously only ran on Windows machines, were ran on iOS and Mac OS and all these other platforms, and they work just as well on Android and iOS as they did on native Windows platforms. He invested a lot in open source technologies. Linux on Windows is one of the biggest, Microsoft is one of the biggest contributors to Linux now. And in terms of open sourcing tech and in AI and other spaces, he's made a big push for that. And you can especially see that with OpenAI and with the acquisition of GitHub. And that was his big priority, making things open and focusing on growth mindset. And then two, like making sure that he strategically brought all of these products together to funnel cloud growth. Now that like we've kind of achieved that, he had set concrete numbers like Azure should be worth 20 billion by 2020. Like we hit that a couple years before. Like it's on a good growth rate. We've done this like culture initiative. The next thing that he has to look for as a CEO, as your company breaks through the $1 trillion market cap, as it's moving towards 2 trillion, like where is growth going to come? Obviously, if you keep executing on this vision, you've set the ball in motion. But what are like the gaps in our business model where we need to execute on? And Microsoft really has two big gaps. One is social media on the consumer side. We have LinkedIn for business, but we don't have consumer, and mobile. And for both of these things, he is implementing a very robust strategy. For mobile, like rather than making a Windows phone or something like that, he is making Surface, Duo, and Neo, like the phone and tablet versions that are based off of Android, so that they can get adoption. They're focused on premium hardware. They're actually targeting like pocket niches in Android users, which will actually get adoption. And for the use cases that we're planning for, it's looking like it's going to be a good fit on the mobile side. On the social side, this was an opportunity that came about that for a cheap price, because they have to sell it, otherwise it gets banned.
Yeah.
Other studios can't act, and it's a gap in the market. We can go in and actually execute on it. And so we did that, and we'll see how it plans out. Like there's a lot of negotiations back and forth with TikTok and with Trump and with making sure all of this happens. But I think Satya is rightly positioned to do that, and we can leverage the data that TikTok gives us in multiple ways. One, we can improve our consumer ads model and pump that through Bing and our ecosystem of search devices that are currently there, and make that stronger. We can tie this into the B2B segment. TikTok has been focusing heavily on TikTok for education. I see a lot of things on TikTok that are if you want to learn more about stocks, if you want to learn about real estate, whatever, if you follow one or two of those things, you start seeing more and more of that in your feed, because they're actively pumping that, and they have sponsorships with actual companies on the backside that pump that content. And so you can take that model and tie it into the LinkedIn side, B2B advertising and LinkedIn marketing solutions there. And so you can start to see these actual synergies where you can take this data and grow this community and have this be a very strong presence. And the last thing, I know I spoke a lot. The last thing that's important about this acquisition is it's not just US. We're acquiring New Zealand, Australia, Canada, and the US. And so what companies like Facebook do very regularly is they A/B test features in New Zealand, Australia, then they bring it over to Western markets like the US. And so now it gives us an actual platform to test these things on for the next generation of users. This new user segment that Microsoft previously didn't have access to. We not only are buying the main saturation market, but we're buying these other markets where we can test these new ideas that we have when we're improving it and bring it back. And so it's not something where a lot of the criticism that Microsoft has gotten is that, with a lot of these products, they've, acquisitions haven't panned out well before Satya, during the Ballmer era. But now, given the infrastructure that we are piecing together with this, we'll be able to actually use formal A/B tests. We'll be able to piece it together, get those insights, and bring it back to actually iterate and improve on. And so, personally, I'm really excited. I really want this to go through. So we'll see. That's just my take on it, though.
Yeah.
That's I think a really in-depth review, and you guys heard it here first from Adi. And Parth, I just love Parth's reaction to the whole thing. He's just Facebook just launched Reels in the US today. I'm cool. I'm not we zucked the whole
thing.
He knows.
I just saw that today. But yeah, to our audience, if you want to think like Adi, you go read this book. I'm expecting another signed copy, Adi. That's why I'm just pitching it right there. But Sid, I know we're almost near the time, but I think we just jump into Q&A, because I hope you guys can stay a little 5 minutes beyond the mark.
Yep.
Maybe.
Yep.
Okay, cool. Because we had a lot of questions, and we're just gonna skip it out and answer the questions we have from the audience.
Yeah, let's do that.
Right.
Yeah. Sid, do you want to pick one first?
Yep, I will start from the top. So Cyrus is asking, how do you go about building trust and vulnerability within your team?
Yeah, I think it's just how you do it with friends too, right? I think the main thing is at work, everyone has a different persona. You're going in trying to be professional. Sometimes people who have one personality type normally with friends have a different personality at work. That's why when you join, a lot of managers make you take this sort of work personality test. But it really just comes down to the same couple things, how likable you are, how you empathize with others on your team. Your whole job as a PM is to you're not doing one thing at any one point. If anyone on your team is feeling overwhelmed, your job is to step in and make their life easier. So whether that means for your designer, giving them wireframes before, so that they can more easily make the high fidelity versions, whether that means writing the survey questions for your UX researcher so that they can go at scale and do those tests, whether for your engineer that means digging into that architecture a little bit more so that they don't have to play around with all these moving parts, or connecting them with the right people, all these things. You will be wearing these different hats day in and day out. And so it just comes down to how well you can get in and make people's lives better. And when you do that, and you offload things from their plate, naturally, it's just human nature to like, trust you and you build those sort of relationships. And so just having those conversations, those hard conversations where you talk to them about like how they're feeling and if there's anything you can do that'll like make their life easier. I think those things are very important in making sure you get that team cohesion.
That's a great response. Thanks for the question, Cyrus.
Yeah.
I'll bring up another one. So this one is for Parth. I'm sorry, it's covering your face too, Parth. You guys
Okay, let's not read the whole thing.
Okay, I'll just read it off since it's really long and it's covering you guys' face. So,
Yeah.
on note of politics within the company, did you feel like not knowing tech sufficiently was a disadvantage when you were trying to communicate with the development team? It would intuitively seem to me like developers would be less inclined to respect you if you didn't speak their language.
So I think like there's pros and cons of like whatever background you bring. So like for me, I brought like a business background, which I think like made like the business side of being a PM like much easier. Like my style of product management for like the technical details, I'll rely much more heavily on my engineering manager for like getting into the nitty gritty with engineers. And so like I personally delegate that piece, whereas like more technical PMs might need to like rely more on like a finance POC or like another business side POC. But what's been really great about having a business background is like I've been able to like work myself into like some of these like bigger picture conversations of like, should we invest in this multi-billion-dollar company and get to like fly to Singapore and like meet with the CEO and stuff like that, because I bring that like background. And so I think it just comes down to like, how can you leverage whatever strengths you have? I think Facebook's culture, like we don't require PMs to have a technical background. Other companies, you can kind of like a lot of companies somewhat require it, like Google, but like it's kind of mixed. And so that creates like different expectations based on different engineers. But Facebook, like for the last 10 years, has never had that requirement. So I think engineers are a lot more accepting of their PM won't be getting into the details. They're more like figuring out what to do over the next 6 months and like unlocking like these bigger opportunities.
Gotcha.
Yeah. Awesome.
Response. And just one last question before we do wrap up. So this one's from Shelly. It's on any tips you guys have for customer discovery calls and how to get customers to answer in an unbiased way.
Yeah, I think like the main thing with that, right, is there's a depth of like engagement. Like there's like a hands-off approach where you're just like giving someone a survey and you're like having them answer questions. There could be biases introduced there. And then there's like the extreme on the opposite side, which is like you are monitoring them and watching them throughout a day, just live their life. Even if it's not relevant to your product, you're watching like the different problems that come up, how that maybe ties into your product. You just do like a focused like user study where you're like seeing what their story is, so you can bring that back. And I think like at all these different stages, you have to be very mindful of the framing. So like rather than asking about like, let's say you're building a solution, you have a proposed solution, rather than asking like, would this fix your life, you ask more about the problem. You talk more about like, you don't even probe the problem, just like ask like, hey, in your day-to-day life, like how do you do this thing? And like it may use your product, it may not. Like if they're using competitor stuff, it's very useful to know what are the value props of those other products and what are the downsides of them. And so you ask these like high level questions, you plot it at a higher level, and you have them like you just observe like where they get more passionate, and you like read their responses. And when you do that, you start to like piece together like different insights and observations on like why are people using our biggest competitor? Like what are the biggest drawbacks with it? Like if we were to make a solution that did this, like I actually don't think that would solve the problem because like this XYZ like insight that some user said like during the interview. And so I think like we have a whole, it's hard for me to like, tell you all of these things in detail, but we actually have a whole like chapter on this in Product Management Sacred 7, the book that's coming out soon. In one of those 7 chapters in product design, one of the subsections like around 15 pages, 20 pages or so, is all on these different surveying methods and different ways you can A/B test and collect this data ahead of time. There's a trick commonly that PMs use, which is like you set up a landing page and you run ads on it. And if people click on it and they engage and they go to the site, you know that you've just proven that there's demand for it. And it can just be a landing page with no like shopping experience. And so a lot of tricks like this, how to use like LinkedIn versus Reddit versus Twitter, how to use their like open search features to like actually get like unique insights, how to see how people are talking about your products versus competitors, how to use that like tactically. There's like a lot of like good nuggets in there that you, Shelly, and others who are interested in this might enjoy. So we'll be happy to share that out later. And I think there's a link that Sid or Sharfat can share with you guys. It's basically like if you guys had like feedback on this, or if you want to get, give us feedback on like what sort of stuff to like talk about, ask us questions. Like we have this form where you can have we have our email, and you can also get a copy of Product Management Sacred 7 at print cost. This book is going to retail around $45 to $55 at launch, but for the first week or so for your community, we're gonna and a few others, we're gonna make it for friends and family. Like we're gonna make it available at print cost at $15 or $16, whatever is the lowest we can set it at. So if you think that this will help you, like feel free to fill out that form, and we're happy to send that to you.
Yeah, just adding to that, this book is essentially 7 books in one. It's a little over 700 pages.
Oh, you guys spent a lot of time writing this, huh?
Yeah, it's 2 years in the works.
Wow, that's awesome. That's so exciting. And yeah, for our audience, make sure to go to Careers Uncorked, sign up for our mailing list. We'll be sharing the URL to the form that you can fill out for the new book releasing next week. With that, I know we're running like 11 minutes late already. So Parth and Adi, do you have any wrapping up thoughts about Facebook APM, Swipe to Unlock, and Product Alliance?
So the Facebook RPM programs applications are open now. They closed Friday. So if you're interested in product management, that's actually how I started my product management career. Would highly recommend applying. Thank you guys so much for having us.
Yeah, thank you so much for having us. This was great. Like the questions that you asked, like the rapid fire was a lot of fun. And yeah, I hope like the resources that we have put out there, whether that's Swipe to Unlock, if you're learning to understand about technology, Sacred 7 that's coming out this week on going deep on these interview skills and skills to become a great product manager, or whether it's Product Alliance when you're like actually interviewing at these companies and looking to become a 10 out of 10 candidate. I hope that they're valuable to you and your community.
Thanks so much, guys. It was great having you guys here. Make sure to check out Product Alliance. I saw a video of Adi. He looks like straight off a Bollywood movie, walking around the floor, tapping on resumes and stuff. Very good. Good job.
Thanks so much for watching, guys. Make sure to hit the like button if you enjoyed the video, and consider subscribing to receive a notification next time we post. Catch you next time.
Wow. Okay. Like this?
Oh my God.
Oh.
Oh my God.
Oh.